Hello again. We've been looking at some of Joel Goldsmith's ideas on living the infinite way. And today I'd like to share with you some of his ideas from chapter 6, I Am the Vine. Goldsmith writes, God is love. What then could you or I do to change the nature of God? Nothing. Can we accept the fact that God is love? Not God is love if we behave in a certain way. Can we accept the fact that God is love and that God's rain falls on the just and the unjust alike? We all know the answer to that. At no time in his ministry did Jesus withhold healing, supply, forgiveness, restoration, reformation because of someone's feelings of unworthiness or temporary sense of wrongdoing. The principle is this: God is love. Our good must be infinite, without any ands, ifs, or buts, because God's grace is not dependent on something that you or I do or don't do. The grace of God cannot be withheld. Let's now consider the principle that God is life. Is God life only at certain times? God is life even before you were born into this human body. God is the only life, and that life is infinite. The life of God is infinite, eternal, and immortal, and as that is the only life, we can forget your age and my age. In the same way that God is love, God is life, not because of something we did or did not do, not because of some way we feel or don't feel, but because God is life totally and completely always. God is power, but God being good, God is good power. Can God then withhold help, supply, or peace, prosperity from anyone? No. But you and I can block it by bringing up the words I, me, and you, and using these terms with statements that are far less than the completeness and totality of our true being. Healing of any sort, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or whether it's about the body, our finances, or anything else, is an activity of the Christ. It is an activity of God's understanding. We've been thinking in terms of my life, my health, my supply, my worthiness, my understanding. And actually, these are not involved in it at all. It's God's life, God's health, God's supply, God's worthiness, God's understanding. The Master Jesus made that very clear when he said that of his own self he could do nothing. It was the Father within, therefore it was the Father's understanding, God's understanding. The moment we open our consciousness to the flow of God and stop all thought about our understanding and our good or bad behavior, Goldsmith writes, we can be assured of this: the flow of God will erase and purify whatever error or deed is in our thought today, and will wipe out all penalty of past infractions. We must come into the realization that it is not our understanding that does this, but God's. And we must come out of the old Judaic ideas and beliefs of a God of punishment and reward. God is not a God of punishment and reward. God is love in totality. God is life in totality. So we must drop the belief that we somehow play a part in obtaining God's love, God's grace, or God's givingness. And remember that the only part we play is to accept it by opening our consciousness to receive it. There is only one truth about life that we must know, and this truth is the nature of God. Take this one thought in the meditation. What is God? What is the nature of God? What is the character of God? What are the qualities of God? Forget about all that you have thought or been taught about God and start fresh. The moment you begin to realize that God is love, you will know that that love is flowing, unfettered, unlimited, and free because the nature of God is infinity. It would be impossible for God to hand us just a thimble of love. It would be impossible for God to give us 90% health. And it would be impossible for God to issue us 60, 70, or 80 years of life, although it is true that we are only demonstrating a thimble of love and supply and just 60, 70, or 80 years of life and strength. Is it not rather fantastic to believe that we can only get a thimbleful of love and only 60 or 70% of health and only 60, 70, or 80 years of good health and strength when the only life we have is God? And God's life is infinite and is not dependent on what we do about it. Life is dependent upon God's ability to maintain its own life immortally, eternally, and infinitely. God is not sitting in judgment or condemnation because of something we have done, thought, said, or for any of our states of ignorance. Are we responsible for our ignorance? No. We have listened first to this one and then that one, and through a feeling of obedience, loyalty, or fear, we have accepted false beliefs. But the school of life is open to any of us at any time we wish to begin learning. And in our enlightenment, we will find freedom. It is only in ignorance that we find discord, limitation, disease, and death. In our enlightenment, we find infinite abundance, freedom, immortality, and eternality. So regardless of what our age may be, remember that there is only one subject on which we need to be enlightened, and that is, what is the nature of God? The nature of God is light. The nature of God is love. The nature of God is life. God is all good, and God's grace endures forever. Center your thought wholly on the word God. God does not withhold any good of any sort. God is good itself. God cannot any more cut off its good than the sun can stop shining on you. Just as the sun shines for everyone, God cannot cut off its good for anyone. In the 15th chapter of John we read, I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abides in me and I in him, the same brings forth much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself except it abide in the vine, no more can you except you abide in me. The moment you set yourself apart as a branch and forget your union with the invisible Christ, just because you cannot see, hear, taste, touch, or smell it, you will be eliminated from the all that is. Always remember, even in your deepest troubles, in your worst diseases, or in your most dreadful sins, that you are still connected with this invisible vine, and that it in turn is rooted and grounded in the whole of the Father, the whole of that which is. The very nature of God prevents God from withholding its flow into the vine, and through the vine into you and me. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. That does not mean that we are here to ask in the sense of give me this or give me that. What you're asking for is the continuance of God's infinite grace. Ask for the continuous realization of omnipresence. God is the infinite Father, or God is infinite Father. No respecter of persons, and through the invisible vine is continuously filling us with everything necessary for our unfoldment here. When you realize that the glory of God is showing forth through any good that has come to you, you may expect even greater good because you have acknowledged the source. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He, God, will give you unlimited and abundant good. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love. And we've already spoken of the greatest commandments. One was to love God with your whole being, and one was to love your neighbor as yourself. So as you go through your day today, remember these commandments and allow love to rule your life. Many blessings, everyone.